Warning. The content of this show is the sole opinion of Dave's and guest, if any, and is not intended to ruffle your feathers. It is encouraged, however, that you leave a comment with a list of your own so that you may share your input on the topic. Any comment containing sour grapes will be deleted.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the channel. Today we have a treat. Today we have a guest, Michael Flanagan. And today we're going to be taking a look at albums from 1981. I'm going to list my 10 favorite. Mike's going to list his 10 favorites. There's so many that it was so hard to get my list down to 10. How was it for you, Mike?
Yeah, it was a little bit difficult. I actually have a lot of honorable mentions. I have 7 honorable mentions.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely discuss honorable mentions as well on this. And so we're both the same age. In 1981, we were both 13 years old.
That's right.
For me, it was really a pivotal time because it was the time when I really stopped liking Kiss and was really starting to get into other bands like AC/DC and Devo and Black Sabbath and everything else that I was really starting to lean heavy and really got into Led Zeppelin around that time. So the list was hard to put together because a lot of these albums really meant something to me at the time. And what I basically did was made my list today, what albums have lasted the test of time and what still stand out to me. Because even though there are some that are in my honorable mentions, I really don't listen to them much.
Right.
But they were really, really in my heavy rotation back in the day.
Yeah, everything you're saying, I can mirror all of that. Exactly. Yeah, but a lot of these records, top 10 anyway, I do still listen. There's a couple that I haven't turned on in a while, but I could listen to all of them right now.
Yeah, same here. I could listen to any album in my top 10 and be happy as a pig in shit.
Yep.
Let's start. You want to take it with number 10?
My number 10, and I think based on a conversation that we had in one of the chats or one of your shows, Thursday night show, this is not going to be a surprise. By the way, I want to say this first. My 10 down to number 3, so those 8 really are interchangeable in terms of their position, right? So there's not one that I love more than the other in these first 8. It's when we get to the top 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And those are not interchangeable, although those are absolutely, without a doubt, not only my 2 for 1981, but probably 2 of my favorite all-time albums. So this is a great year to do this. So this is fantastic. I'm very excited about it. It's a lot of pop rock in my list. Nothing too out there. Every one of these records people are going to know.
Okay, I wish I could say the same for me, but I can't. But let's.
My number 10 is Get Lucky, Loverboy. I love this record. There were 4 or 5 singles off of it, first of all.
Lucky Ones, right?
Lucky Ones, yep. Lucky Ones, Take Me to the Top, Working for the Weekend, When It's Over. Great record.
Is the Kid Is Hot Tonight on this record?
No, that's not on this one.
That's the first one?
I think it's on their first record, right.
Yeah.
Another great song. It's funny that I think the biggest hit on this record is, it's not my least favorite, but it's one that's been worn out a little bit. And I used to do this song and will occasionally drag it out in a duo gig even. But Working for the Weekend is, although probably the biggest hit on this record, of the hits, my least favorite at this point. Still love it, don't get me wrong, but it's a little worn for me. But everything else.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting pick because I told you before we got started, I was between 22, 23 records.
Yep.
That album was not in my 22.
Yeah.
However, my band did do Working for the Weekend.
What band didn't, right?
Yeah.
That's all you need is a
And
cowbell.
exactly. And it's a fun song. I
Yes.
didn't love Loverboy, but I didn't not like them. But I just, it wasn't enough for me to be like, I wouldn't say I was a fan.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel the same way. I think the cover of this album gives people some pause. I think. I don't know why. I don't care. I never really thought about it until well after it came out. But who is that on the cover of this record? And apparently that is not Mike Reno, as rumor would have it, or as he even played along with when people said that was him. That is not him.
Right.
That is the daughter of the photographer that took that photo. She was the only one that fit in those pants.
Johnny Bravo. Okay. So that came right down the pipe, a fastball. And now I'm going to bring us out to left field. My number 10 is the first full-length album by Oingo Boingo called Only a Lad. I was a huge Oingo Boingo fan. I love every album. I love Steve Bartek's guitar work. I love the songs. I love what they have to say. And this still to this day is one of my favorite records of all time.
Cool. I'm not familiar with it. Oingo Boingo was introduced to me in it was it Fast Times or Valley Girl? I think
Fast Times.
Fast Times, yeah. Yep.
Okay, my number 9 is by a trio. And this is probably my favorite album by this band. It is The Police, Ghost in the Machine.
Excellent choice.
Every song on this album I love, but the ones I really love are songs like Omega Man, Darkness, Secret Journey. Love it. And I love every little thing she does as Magic. I love that progression. There's actually a song by George Strait that kind of borrows that progression. I love it.
Cool. I love that. Love that record too. My number 9, one of my favorite artists of all time, Tom Petty, Hard Promises. Fantastic
Great album.
Record. In fact, I cut my grass this afternoon and listened to this album while I did so.
I love King's Road on this record.
King's Road, great song.
It's fantastic. This album, it just missed the 10 for me. It didn't make my list, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't fantastic. Between this and Damn the Torpedoes, to me, that's his 2 best records.
I'd have to agree with you. I'm more drawn toward old Tom Petty. Damn the Torpedoes being my favorite of all of them.
Agreed.
But Hard Promises, there it is, 1981. I loved this record. I got it when it was new. I still play The Waiting in almost every gig I do, even with different guitar players. So I do it with Donnie. I do it with Mark also.
Nice.
I love The Waiting. A Woman in Love is amazing, and I would do that song more often. It just doesn't seem to go over as well.
So you play this with both the Wahlbergs.
Yes.
Donnie and Mark.
Right. Donnie and Mark. Isn't that something? Yeah. I never even thought about that. I'm glad you just put that in my head. That's cool. But Tom Petty at number 9. How can you? Tom Petty's just amazing. Number 8. This record I absolutely love. And it's Wild Eyed Southern Boys by 38 Special.
Wow.
Yeah. I was drawn to this record because of the song Fantasy Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really probably one of my absolute favorite 38 Special songs. Because this is one of their many eighth note songs, right? Co-written by Petterick.
Mm-hmm.
Jim
yeah,
Petterick.
and it wasn't Hold On Loosely on this album too?
Yep, Hold On Loosely is there. That's also co-written by Jim Petterick. I love Wild Eyed Southern Boys. Great song. This whole record for me is great. Great record. I love 38 Special. I love Jeff Carlisi. I think that I love his playing and I love his tone.
Yeah.
It's just I love it.
Oh, they were a great band.
Great band.
So my number 8, again, this is going to be a record that I don't think you're familiar with. It is Gino Vanelli, Nightwalker. Now, the single that was on this album was a song called Living Inside Myself. It's one of 2 ballads, I believe, on this record. The rest of this album is just monster songs. Vinnie Colaiuta on drums. It is just a great, great record. One of my all-time favorites. Again, I could listen to this nonstop and I'd be okay with it.
I know that you're a Gino fan, and I am too. What I'm familiar with, but it's mostly hits. I can't say as though I've never had a Gino album, but I'm probably going to have to visit that one.
Yes, it's fantastic. So my number 7 is another album that I'm not sure that you would be that familiar with. One of my favorite hard rock guitar players, and I love the singer on this. The singer's name is Gary Barden. The album is Michael Schenker Group, MSG. A fantastic album. I would say this should be in every hard rock collection of classic albums. It's fantastic.
Were there singles on this record, Dave? Because I remember MSG singles from the 80s.
On and On.
I'm going to have to listen to it. I wish I had your memory.
On and On was the radio cut. Oh, I think you do.
Yeah.
Great song. Great record.
Fantastic. All right. My number 7, Fair Warning, Van Halen.
Wow.
Yeah. A little bit. It's not my favorite Van Halen record.
Okay.
I would have to go 1, I think.
Interesting.
But I love this. A little bit darker, right? But Mean Street, Unchained, Push Comes to Shove. This whole record for me is fantastic, and I'm actually more. This is going to be blasphemous, I think, for a lot of people, but I am more a Sammy Van Halen. I'm more into Sammy Van Halen, although back then.
Okay, that's it. We got to move in.
Yeah, I think the song writing was a little better, and it obviously they're more pop songs, but I love Sammy Hagar. First of all, I've seen David Lee Roth many times live. I've seen Sammy Hagar many times live, and for my money, it's Sammy Hagar just blows him away with his ability. Now, showmanship and so forth. I saw a David Lee Roth solo tour once where he rode an inflatable microphone around the arena floor, and it
1990.
It was silly,
awful.
Yeah, terrible.
I saw that tour.
Yeah, and even in 07, I saw them in 07, and I saw them in 12, or whenever they did the reunion shows. I'm
not to be without criticism, but I saw Sammy Hagar on tour with a beach towel wrapped around him the whole time. I'm like, do you want to maybe get dressed for the show?
Yeah, I could see maybe the Cabo Wabo, the tequila, the party guy thing persona.
Awful.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the singing and the songs, phenomenal. But that said, Fair Warning, he's in my top 10 right there. It's number 7. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
My number 6. This record was really big in my life at that time. Really big in my life. And it's funny because this record was kind of put together. It wasn't all recorded at once. The recording of this record started in 1972, in fact. And it came out in 1981. Tattoo You, the Rolling Stones. I love
phenomenal album. It didn't make my cut, but I absolutely love the record. But yes, this was a lot of outtakes that were revisited.
Yep.
Worried About You.
Yeah.
Slave. In fact, I heard Slave on the radio yesterday.
Really?
It was Ron Wood's birthday, and so they played Slave, and I love that song. Although I don't think Ron Wood was on Slave, because I think that was from the It's Only Rock and Roll sessions. I think it's Mick Taylor.
Yeah, I'm not sure who plays on that one. I know that it looks like Ronnie Wood only wrote 2 or co-wrote 2 songs on this. Black Limousine and No Use in Crying. I still do Waiting on a Friend often in gigs. Not every gig, but probably once every 3rd gig we do that.
Great
Love
song.
It. Start Me Up is again, it's strange because Working for the Weekend on my number 10 is probably the biggest hit off that record and probably my least favorite of them. You know, if I had to rank them, they're all good. Don't get me wrong, but Start Me Up just doesn't do it for me anymore. I think it's too many. Start Me Up. I love it okay.
Still.
I like it.
The song on the record that I could do without is Hang Fire.
I like Hang Fire.
That's the one I could do without.
Yeah, and everybody's gonna have one or two. I love Little TNA. I love hearing Keith Richards sing. Love it. For me, it's phenomenal, and huge memories with that record in 1981.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So my number 6 is an album that I think is an ultra important album for people who want to go back to 1981 and see what was going on. The album is Don't Say No by Billy Squier. And for me, every time I hear a song on that album, it brings me back to 7th grade. I'm like, this record was so effing good. There's one song that I don't love called Nobody Knows. The rest of the record, I love every song. It was produced by Reinhold Mack, who's one of my favorite engineers and producers. He produced The Game for Queen. Love him. He also engineered a lot of the Jeff Lynne ELO stuff in the mid to late 70s. But this album for me is just, I mean, it is perfect. Really.
I agree with you.
Number 5 for me is one of those albums that it gets nostalgic when I hear certain songs that I absolutely loved it. I actually wrestled where this would fall on the list because it was either going to be 3, 4, or 5. And after I finally wrestled and went back and listened to everything again, this one settled in number 5. It is Ozzy Osbourne, Diary of a Madman. Love it. It's the better of the 2 Ozzy albums. It's a fantastic record. Everything about it, I love. Again, it's another perfect album for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I like that too. And you're talking specifically when you say the 2 Ozzy, you mean the 2 Randy Rhoads records?
Right. This was the second album when it came out, so I like this better of the 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's not in my top 10, and it's not one of my honorable mentions, but it was a big part of my life then. I was listening to a lot of Ozzy and Judas Priest then too, and AC/DC. I don't know. I looked at it for the top 10 and I didn't put it in there, but it is I agree with you, a great record. I think what's hilarious is your number 6 is Don't Say No, Billy Squier. My number 5 is Don't Say No, Billy Squier. What's really funny to me is I did listen to this one again because I knew there was 1 or 2 that were maybe clunkers for me. And I came up with one, and it's Nobody Knows. It's exactly the one that
I may be around.
Yeah.
Never liked it.
I'll tell you this. The thing that surprised me about this when looking at some things online with this record is that Lonely as the Night was not released as a single.
Oh, really? It was a radio hit, huh? Just like radio?
Probably just, like an AOR radio hit. Yeah, was not released. I love it. 2 Days Gone was released. My Kind of Lover, In the Dark, The Stroke.
2 Days Gone, most people forget about.
Right.
It's a great song.
Great song. Great song.
What Do You Want From Me's a great song.
Great. I love this whole record. And my cousin introduced me to this one. I think we were listening to the cassette or something in his case. He was 4 years older than me, so he could drive,
Right.
And this was one of those. Yeah, this and Donnie Iris, I think. But Don't Say No, huge for me. Don't Say No. My number 4. This is going to raise some eyebrows, I think.
Okay.
Absolute pop record. Maybe a guilty pleasure, but to me, and I've heard other people say this, I've always said it too, there's no guilty pleasure. It's just good music, man. And I get that a lot of people might say, oh. But for me, it's Private Eyes, Hall & Oates. I love Daryl Hall. And I love this record. Again, another one that was pretty big for me in 81. You're quiet.
I to be honest with you, I think I know 3 songs on this album.
Probably most people do. Yeah.
Does this have Private Eyes? You Make My Dreams Come True? Is that on this album?
No, I can't go for that.
Oh, I Can't Go For That. And what was the other hit?
The other single was Did It in a Minute. We
did it. Yeah, great song.
Great song. I love Hall & Oates. I love Daryl Hall. He's one of my
was
top
Every
5.
Time You Go Away on this record too, or was that the previous one as well?
No, it wasn't. And was it, that might've been, Oh Yeah. I'd have to look at it because I don't have that. You have that photographic.
Is H2O before or after?
That's
what I don't. I can't remember
because they all run into H2O was the next year. Voices was the one before that.
Okay.
Yeah, I happen to have that right in front of me. So
Voices might be the one with Every Time You Go Away.
Yeah, I think it was. H2O had
earlier?
Maneater, One-on-One, Family Man.
Oh, that was a horrible record.
Family Man was a great record. I love Maneater. We do Maneater quite a bit in our shows. People love it. Voices had Every Time You Go Away, You Make My Dreams, You've Lost That Love and Feeling, Kiss on My List. Yeah. Hall & Oates is not everybody's thing.
Great band.
I love them. And I love the band. I'm disappointed with their live shows the last few years. The musicianship is always awesome, but they're front of house guy. I don't know what's going on. I have a friend of mine that works for Claire Brothers, and he's been with Luke Bryan for years and years. He said it's known throughout the industry that whatever is going on front of house with Hall & Oates is not good, and it is not good. It's very disappointing to go see them, and you know what's happening. You can hear some of what's happening, but the mix is just so bad it almost makes the show unwatchable.
Oh, that's too bad.
That is too bad.
My number 4, oddly enough, is an album called Fair Warning by Van Halen. Now, me and you are very different on the Van Halen. In fact, if someone said to me, I can't listen to the Sammy Hagar for the rest of my life, I would be like, okay, that's fine. The Lee Roth stuff's what I like. And let me tell you about Fair Warning. It's all about side 1. Mean Streets, Dirty Movies, Sinner's Swing, Hear About It Later. Boom, 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 boom. Side 2, you get So This Is Love, Push Comes to Shove, Unchained. I might have flipped that around. Unchained, Push Comes to Shove, So This Is Love. And then One Saturday in the Park and One Foot Out the Door. Saturday Afternoon in the Park, One Foot Out the Door. Those last 2 make it not the best album for me. My favorite Van Halen album is Women and Children First, the year before, which is oddly enough my favorite year for music in 1980. This, it's funny because there was a lot of records I listened to, and I won't talk about it till after we're done with the list because I don't want to say something that you like, but there's a lot of records that I loved that didn't make this list, mainly because I wouldn't listen to them anymore.
That's what happened with me and Kiss. When I was a kid, Kiss was the thing. In fact, I had a sister named Beth, and she is named Beth because of me and my love of Kiss. I was 8 when she was born, and her name was going to be Carrie Ann, and I convinced my parents that it should be Beth, not Elizabeth, Beth, and they agreed and named my sister Beth after that song. I was such a huge Kiss fan. It was my first and second concerts ever. I saw the Love Gun tour, then I saw the Dynasty tour for my first and second concerts ever.
Wow.
I was a huge Kiss fan. And somewhere around this time, 1980, 1981, I was done with it.
It was after Unmasked, because Unmasked was it was okay, but then it was music from The Elder, and everybody was like jumping off like rats on a sinking ship.
I think Elder came out in 1981, didn't it?
81, yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. I was done with it. And once I discovered this other music,
right,
I discovered musicianship too.
Yeah, for me, it was Zeppelin in 81 that I discovered.
Yeah, and I was just off the Kiss bandwagon. And I mean, I've seen them a couple times since, just for nostalgia's sake. But anyway.
My number 3 is an album called Black Sabbath Mob Rules.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this album is one of the rare albums where I went back to listen to it and I was like, oh, this has to be way higher than I thought it was. I loved everything. I was like, not only do I remember it being fantastic, it still was fantastic.
Yeah.
Falling Off the Edge of the World, Sign of the Southern Cross, Voodoo, Country Girl. In fact, the one song I remember loving as a kid, Turn Up the Night, was probably my least favorite in the recent listening. But a fantastic album produced by Martin Birch. It's Ronnie James Dio's second attempt with Sabbath, and it's fantastic.
Yep.
Not as good as Heaven and Hell, but right underneath it.
I love Dio. I love Ronnie James Dio.
It's great.
I would agree with that. Yeah. My number 3, one of my favorite vocalists of all time. In fact, I'm very excited that I'm going to get to, hopefully, and cross our fingers, see him in December this year. Face Value, Phil Collins. Love this record. You start a record within the air tonight, which is not really a traditional starting tune, right? You want to get in with a maybe more of an upbeat kind of a vibe. In the Air Tonight is the first song on this record. I love it all the way through. I love his experimentation with new drum machine technology, Lindrum technology. I love it. There's not a song on it that I don't like. Probably my favorite tune on the record is I Missed Again.
I was going to say that's the only other song I remember on it.
There weren't a lot of hits on it, but it is fantastic. And
I know the album. I mean, I remember listening to it back then. I just couldn't tell you what they were today.
Yeah. If Leaving Me Is Easy is a great song for me too. I love it. I just love the whole thing. And I love Phil Collins. He is, if he's not, I have my top 5 vocalists of all time, right? And there are some in there that will never change. Steve Perry, Daryl Hall, Eric Martin. Those 3, I would say, are solid, never going to get out of the top 5, right? I got to put Phil Collins really high up there too. Maybe sometimes he's out of the 5, depending. Paul Carrick recently came back into my.
See, I think Carrick's way better than Phil Collins as a vocalist. I like Phil Collins songs, but I don't think of him much as a vocalist.
I would agree today that, it's just some of them are interchangeable for me. But yeah, Paul Carrick, technique wise, and just a tone and I guess you're right. Anyway, I love Phil Collins. Face Value is my number 3. My number 2. This was great because you tried to guess this a couple times on the Thursday night get together, and you didn't come close.
I was trying to think what was out then that was ultra poppy that I might have missed. And I have to be honest, I completely missed 38 Special. I forgot about that record. I mean, it doesn't make my top 22, but I forgot about it. And that's only because I love every one of these albums, and I don't know that album as well.
Yep. Well, this record went gold. And go ahead.
Can I take one more guess at it?
Sure. Yes.
Is it AC/DC?
It is not.
It's not For Those About to Rock. Okay.
It is not. It is not.
I figured it would be another one that's not on my list.
This one I think will surprise you. But this is, let me caveat all this first. This is one of my favorite bands of all time. I was introduced to this band right before this record came out by a cousin of mine. It's actually my father's cousin, so he was much older. He's the one that took me to my first 2 concerts, and then he took me to see this band as well. I was introduced to this band before I saw them live. I heard some of their music by my cousin, but then I went to watch them play softball with 94 HJY in Providence. They did a charity softball thing, this band and crew. Do you know who it is yet?
Peter Allen.
No. No.
I have no idea.
Okay. It is The Completion Backward Principle by the Tubes.
Ah, the Tubes.
This is, for me, a perfect record. absolutely perfect. In fact, an amazing thing happened 2 years ago where suddenly the Tubes came out and started, they did a tour on this record by playing Completion Backward in its entirety. And I saw this show twice. I saw it in East Greenwich here in Rhode Island. I saw it in Boston. Amazing, amazing show. There are only 2 hit singles on this record that anybody would know, and there would be Talk to You Later, which Steve Lukather plays guitar on, and I'm a huge Toto.
I think he co-wrote it too.
Yeah, probably. Let me look and see. Yeah, he did. Him and David Foster. Also, the other one was "Don't Want to Wait Anymore," which was kind of a ballad, and it was sung by one of the guitar players at the time, Bill Spooner, and that's credited to the whole band and David Foster. This has some quirky tunes on it. The Tubes was, originally they were sort of a college art rock kind of a band, In fact, Prairie Prince, the drummer for the Tubes, was the original drummer in Journey, and he decided to leave Journey to go back to the Tubes because Journey wasn't artsy enough for him at the time. I love Prairie Prince too. I've met this whole band a ton of times, spoken to them many, many times. I've had them sign.
Who took that gig? Was that Ainsley Dunbar?
Ainsley Dunbar came in, first, and then of course Steve Smith.
Steve Smith came in 1980, I believe, or 79.
But in any case, the Tubes is one of my all-time favorite bands. Completion Backward Principle is my number 2, solidly anchored at number 2, not interchangeable with the first 8 in my top 10. The Tubes, Completion Backward Principle. Love it. Love it.
Interesting.
Yes.
So my number 2 was more popular amongst heterosexual men.
You got to give this record a listen.
No, I will. I know Talk to You Later. That's it. But my number 2, I remember when the record came out and they were doing radio advertising spots for it. And they mentioned the band, and I'm like, what band is this? I've never heard of this band. And absolutely in love with this album. I listened to it today, and it still brings me back then. And it also reminds me how good this band was. And it is Rush Moving Pictures. It is 7 songs long.
Yep.
Opens up with Tom Sawyer, Red Bar Cheddar, YYZ, Limelight, and then we go into Camera Eye, Witch Hunt, and Vital Signs. And absolutely an amazing record. In fact, the album before it, Permanent Waves, I think is almost as good. And I think the album after it, Signals, almost as good. But there's something super special about this record. And it is an absolute point of nostalgia. Like, I think if you were going to have some type of horrific death and you were like, whether it was like you knew in the next 10 seconds it was going to be over. If you put on a record like that where it brings back nostalgia, I think it would make it a lot more peaceful, if that makes any sense. Yeah. No, I'm serious, because there's something about it where it's just like, it makes you reflect like there is good.
Yeah.
There is good.
There is good. I love that band too. Great record, great choice. Red Bar Cheddar is one of my favorite Rush tunes. Before we get to number 1, what the number 1s are, I thought that I looked up some 1981 facts and so forth. And some of the singles that were on the chart that year, there weren't that many, right? Because some spent, I'm talking about number 1s. Number 1 singles.
Oh, can I take a guess?
Yeah.
I think Endless Love was like the biggest single that year.
Endless Love spent 9 weeks, and that is tied for the biggest single of the year. Let me tell you what
okay.
Yeah,
well, then I would guess Olivia Newton-John, Physical.
Nope.
Really?
Nope. No. You'll be you won't be surprised, but here I'll go in chronological order, right?
Please.
Here are the number 1s and how many weeks they spent at number 1. Just like Starting Over, John Lennon. I know that Double Fantasy came out in 1980. I did buy that new as well, and I was a huge Beatles fan. and devastated with the John Lennon's murder. But that spent 4 weeks at number one, right in the beginning of the year, 1981. The Tide is High, Blondie, was 1 week at number one. Then came Celebration, Kool and the Gang, for 2 weeks. And then 9 to 5, Dolly Parton came for 2 weeks. This sort of gives you a flavor of the kind of music that was, very popular then. And I think that even though a lot of my records were pop records, there are only a couple of these, a couple songs from them that were anywhere near number one singles, right? I Love a Rainy Night, Eddie Rabbitt, was 2 weeks. Keep on Loving You, REO Speedwagon, was next at 1 week. Rapture, Blondie, spent 2 weeks. We're halfway through. Kiss on My List, Daryl Hall and John Oates, was 3 weeks at number one. Morning Train, 9 to 5, Sheena Easton, was 2 weeks. Here is the one that ties Endless Love for 9 weeks at number one, and that was Betty Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes.
Kim Carnes.
Yep.
Produced by Val Garay, I believe.
Oh, yeah. I'd take your word for it. I'm sure that's accurate. Stars on 45 medley, spent 1 week. One brutal. I don't like the Stars on 45.
Oh, horrible.
Terrible. The One That You Love, Air Supply, 1 week. Jesse's Girl, Rick Springfield, spent 2 weeks. Then came Endless Love at 9 weeks. Arthur's Theme, Best That You Can Do, Christopher Cross, we spent 3 weeks at number one. This single itself, I had this 45. I went to the mall with my grandmother and asked her if she would buy this for me. And when I brought it back to her apartment and played it, I had her put the headphones on, and she didn't want to hear it. She said, "Oh, Michael, I don't like your music." She put this on, and to this day, she still talks about this song and how much she loves it. So it's a good memory for me. Private Eyes was 2 weeks. And Physical, Olivia Newton-John, close, 6 weeks to round out the year.
Physical might have crept into 82.
I bet it did, and I bet it spent more than 9 weeks. But in 1981,
right,
6 weeks.
So
technicality.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
There was also ELO had that horrible song from 81 that I hated. Hold on tight to your dreams. I never liked that song, but I do want to talk about some albums for me that did not make the cut.
Yeah, me too. Go ahead.
And
I'd love to hear these.
So before we get to our number one,
yeah,
for me, what did not make the cut, I'm just gonna go down the list, and then if there's some that you hit, you say, and then you can tell me what you did make your list. AC/DC, For Those About to Rock. I love the record. It's not as good as Back in Black. It's not as good as Flick of the Switch, and it certainly wasn't as good as my top 10. Rick Springfield, Working Class Dog. Fantastic record, didn't make it. For me, the Rolling Stones, which made your list. The Tom Petty album, Hard Promises, which also made your list. Bill Evans, You Must Believe in Spring, is a jazz record that I absolutely love. Judas Priest, Point of Entry, is a phenomenal album. That side 2 kills it for me. Al Jarreau, Breaking Away. I love Triumph, Allied Forces from that year.
That Allied Forces, absolutely. And you know what? That should be in my honorable mentions, but it should be.
King Crimson, Discipline, is up there with some of my favorite stuff. And then I had Rick James, Street Songs, which was a great record, and Prince's Controversy album. Men at Work, Business as Usual was a phenomenal record. And an Uli Roth album called Firewind, I loved.
Nice. Honorable mentions for me. Some of these, again, are probably going to fall in the, oh God, category for you. I know this first one is, but I still nonetheless love it. I love Lou Gramm, and I like Foreigner 4. I think it's a great record. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I love the song. You know what's a song I like on that record that I overlook? I always overlook it, is Break It Up.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's the best song on the album.
Great tune. I was introduced to it obviously with the hits, and Urgent is one of my favorite songs even today. Love it. I'm not a big fan of Jukebox Hero. Like I think the other day you said it's very West Side Story kind of,
right, exactly.
And I never thought of that, but I guess it did give me the same kind of vibe. It's okay, but I like Foreigner 4. This record came out in 1981, was recorded before that when Greg Raleigh was still in the band. And it is a live record, but Captured by Journey is one of my favorite records of all time. It did come out in 1981. And I love the, I don't know how many minute long version, Dixie Highway. Love it. I love the whole record. Walks Like a Lady is on there too. Great live record. And then the studio cut to end the record, Party's Over, is
Great.
One of my favorite Journey songs ever. So
That's another song that always brings me back.
that guitar riff is phenomenal. I love it. Love it.
It's fantastic.
It's one of my favorite records. Ghost in the Machine. That's that was in yours. Ghost in the Machine. Phenomenal record. Every little thing she does is magic. Fantastic song. All the songs. It's great. Abacab. I like Man on the Corner. I don't think that you care for this one in particular.
Which one? Man in the Corner?
Abacab.
I think the album is great.
Yeah.
I think some of the songs are weak, though. I love Man in the Corner. I love Abacab. I love No Reply at All. And I love Keep It Dark.
Yep.
Me and Sarah Jane is okay. For me, Genesis, you could take a bunch of songs off albums that are close to each other and make a phenomenal double album. I don't know if you remember the Three Sides live album had Paper Laid on it.
Yeah. Love that.
And
song.
You Might Recall. Great. That's one of my all-time favorite Genesis songs.
Yeah. I'm a big Genesis fan. I love the 1983 album Genesis.
Yeah, great record.
With That's All.
Home by the Sea, Just a Job to Do.
Yep, Just a Job to great. Home by the Sea 1 and 2. I love that.
Yeah.
Record, but I also love Abacab. Came in 81. Nature of the Beast, April Wine.
Ooh, great record.
I think it's a great band. I also like Songs from the Attic live.
She's Got Away on that record is 100 times better than the Cold Spring Harbor version.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Other than that, I don't know much about the record.
It's good. It's a good collection of songs.
All right, so it's time for our number ones. Let me hear what your number one record from 1981 is.
Drum roll, please. This is not only a number one from 1981 for me, but I think I would be hard-pressed to find another record that I loved more all years.
Really?
That's how important. Yes. And I know that seems, maybe I shouldn't say that, but
I can't make that statement.
Near and dear to my heart, this record is. I love it, love it, love it. My all-time favorite vocalist, my all-time favorite band, I think. And that's Journey Escape. Perfect album from the first note to the last. There is nothing about this record that sucks. It is all 100 miles an hour for me. It is all tens. Every song.
Okay, so my number one is an album that is by a band from San Francisco. It is also Journey Escape because it's the best album of that year.
It is.
You're right. Every song on the album. Now, I'm trying to think what the weak link on the album is. It might be Dead or Alive, but it's still a great song. Want It? Or, I think I like that better than Lay It Down.
It's Lay It Down or Dead or Alive if you had to pick one for me.
Right, but they're still both great songs. You're picking which one you like a little less, not which one's worse.
Right.
They're both great songs. Mother, Father is a great song.
It's phenomenal.
Everything on this record. Jesse Rides. Oh, I love the album. I mean, it is from Don't Stop Believin', which is unbelievably overplayed, and yet every time it's on the radio, I'll listen to it.
Yep.
Stone in Love. Who's Crying Now?
Mm-hmm.
And the scary thing is, if given a proper listen, Frontiers is a friggin' great record too.
Frontiers is just as perfect as Escape. I think it would have maybe been exactly on par with Escape if the two soundtrack songs were left on it.
That's right. And Troubled Child was still on it. And they took off Back Talk.
Yeah, Back Talk is. There's nothing on Escape that I can say I would love to have removed and replaced.
Agreed.
But on Frontiers, Back
Agreed.
Talk is one. Yeah. Yep. But
agreed.
From and also for my money too, or it's absolute in my mind truth. Steve Perry was at the absolute top of his game for the Escape record and tour.
It's funny because I think about when you just said it's your favorite of any year, and I just go right to 1982, and I'm like, what would my favorite be of 82? And I'm not going to say it because I may do an episode of it, but I'm already thinking, I think my favorite from 1982 might be a better album. All right, folks, in the comments, I would appreciate it if you told us your top 10. Maybe there's something we're forgetting. Maybe there's something that you think is more important. Let us know. Awesome. Mike, it was a great time with you here today.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Dave, for having me do this. I loved watching the one with you, and
we'll have to do another one together as well. All right, everyone.
Absolutely.
Very good.